They say true love never dies. But what happens when love disappears and returns at the altar with a child in his arms? This is the story of Linda Chakir, a woman abandoned at her lowest and confronted with a secret that could destroy her happily ever after. 2 years ago in USA, Linda stood in the kitchen of their modest apartment in Atlanta. The smell of fried plantain filled the air. Her hand gently rested on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, she was humming a song from back home in Nigeria, a lullaby her mother used to sing. "Jake," she called, "your food is ready." No answer. She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel, waddled toward the bedroom, and opened the door slowly. Empty. His laptop, charger, suitcase, gone. The closet, half empty. Her heart skipped. She rushed to the living room. A handwritten note sat on the center table. She picked it up, hands trembling. "I'm sorry, Linda. I can't do this anymore. I need to be free. I'm not ready to be a father. Please don't call me Jake." Her knees gave way. She collapsed onto the floor, clutching her belly, screaming in pain, not just from betrayal, but from contractions beginning far too early. That night, Linda was rushed to the hospital. Alone, her son, Jesse, didn't make it. Back in Nigeria, 1 year later, Linda sat beneath a mango tree in her grandmother's compound in Enugu. The air was warm. Her eyes carried shadows of a broken past. She had returned to Nigeria with only 2 suitcases and a heart full of sorrow. Life was quiet now, too quiet, until she met Dr. Chuka Okoye, kind, soft-spoken, and everything Jake wasn't. He met her at a community health outreach where she came to volunteer. She spoke softly, mostly about children. He listened carefully, mostly about her heart. A friendship bloomed, then love. But Linda had a rule. "I can't open my heart fully until I'm sure it's safe." Chuka was patient, and after a year, he proposed. Simple, gentle, sincere. She said yes. The wedding day, the hall was decorated with white lilies and golden ribbons. The scent of roasted chicken, puff-puff, and jollof rice filled the air. Linda stood before the mirror, dressed in a white gown stitched with pearls. Her natural curls wrapped in a gelly. Her eyes shimmered with peace. She looked like joy, but her heart was battling fear. Not of Chuka, no. He was good, but of the past. Would it ever truly let go? She shook the thought off. Today was her day. She deserved this happiness. The guests rose. The music played. And Linda began her slow walk down the aisle. Chuka stood at the altar, beaming. But as Linda reached the halfway mark, something strange happened. Whispers. Guests turned their heads. And then silence. A man stood at the back of the hall. Tall, fair-skinned, dressed in a blue suit, holding the hand of a little boy. The child looked familiar. Too familiar. Linda's legs froze. Chuka frowned. "Who is that?" The man walked forward. People stepped aside. He stopped beside Linda. Her veil flew slightly from a breeze. "Linda," he said, his voice unmistakable. "This is your son." The hall exploded in murmurs. Linda covered her mouth. Her legs buckled. "Jake," she whispered. He nodded, holding out a birth certificate. "This is Jesse, our son." No, she said, shaking her head. "Our son died." "I was wrong," he said. "They lied to you. I took him away." Jake had abandoned Linda, yes. But after leaving, he returned secretly 2 weeks later, hoping to see her from afar. Instead, he found out she had delivered, and the baby was in critical care. Out of fear she would never forgive him, and convinced she didn't want the baby if she thought he'd left, he used fake documents and claimed the child as a single father. He raised Jesse in silence, watching Linda's Facebook from time to time. But when he saw her wedding announcement, something broke in him. He couldn't let Jesse grow up not knowing his mother. So he came back, not for Linda, but for Jesse, or so he claimed. Heartbreak in the hall. Linda dropped to her knees, her makeup smeared with tears. The little boy walked up to her. "Mommy," he said softly. And in that moment, she knew. He looked exactly like her father. The same ears, The same nose. This was her son, the one she thought she'd buried, the one she mourned. Alive. The hall went silent again. All eyes turned to the groom. Dr. Chuka walked forward slowly. He looked at the boy, then at Jake, then at Linda. He took a deep breath. I love this woman, he said, his voice steady, and I will not abandon her because of a past she did not choose. He knelt beside Linda. I will raise this child as mine, if you'll let me. The crowd gasped again. Some cried. Some clapped. Some shook their heads in disbelief. But it wasn't over. Jake pulled out a court order. I have legal custody, he said. I raised him. You can't just take him away. Linda stood, torn between two men and the son she thought she lost. She held Jesse in her arms, rocking him gently. She looked at Jake, then at Chuka, then at the altar. Her lips trembled as she whispered, I need time, but the wedding is off. Gasps echoed again, not because she chose Jake, not because she chose Chuka, but because she chose herself. In a world where women are often told to just accept pain, Linda made the hardest choice of all, to breathe, to pause, to heal. Because sometimes the right choice isn't between two men. It's between peace and pretending. This is not the end of her story. It's only the beginning. The wedding hall had emptied, the music had stopped, and so had her world. Linda sat in her bedroom in silence, still wearing the wedding gown, now stained with tears. Her bridesmaids whispered in corners. Her aunt knocked on the door twice. She said nothing. Jesse was asleep on the bed beside her, peaceful, innocent, unaware that his arrival had torn apart two worlds. Her phone buzzed for the 5th time. Chuka, Jake, reporters, bloggers. She turned it off and held her son close. I thought I buried you, she whispered into his hair. But God had other plans. Chuka's heartbreak. Elsewhere, Dr. Chuka sat at a quiet bar with his cousin. His face was unreadable, but his eyes spoke of a man who had been hit in the chest with silence. I still love her, he said finally. The cousin blinked. After all that? Yes, but love isn't always possession. He looked at the untouched glass of wine. She needs time, and if she's meant to be mine, she'll return. The court summons. A week later, Linda received a letter by courier. You are summoned to appear before the Fulton County Family Court. Plaintiff, Jake Hudson. Matter, custody adjustment and legal clarification. Her hands shook. Jake wasn't done. He wasn't back just to reconnect. He wanted to take Jesse away. After Jake took Jesse from the hospital, he moved to Florida. He got a fake birth certificate listing him as the sole parent. He told everyone the mother had died in childbirth. He never once showed Jesse a photo of Linda. Never told the boy he had family in Nigeria. Never let him meet anyone who could ask questions. He raised Jesse not as a father, but as a man trying to erase guilt. Linda sat opposite Barrister Ijeoma, a calm, sharp, and fearless woman. After reading the documents, Ijeoma looked up and said, He has no case, but he has money, and he'll use it. Linda nodded. I don't want to punish him. I just want to be his mother. The lawyer smiled. Then we fight, not for revenge, but for truth. One evening, Jesse looked up at Linda and asked, Mommy, did you look for me? Her heart shattered. I thought you were gone, she said gently. Daddy said you didn't want me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She pulled him close. I wanted you more than anything. I still do. The court was packed. Jake arrived in a sharp suit with 2 lawyers. Linda wore a plain gown. Beside her, Ijeoma looked calm but dangerous. Jake's lawyer began. Your Honor, Mr. Hudson has raised a child alone for 2 years. He had provided shelter, food, education, and love. The mother abandoned him after birth. Linda's mouth dropped. Ijeoma stood. Objection, Your Honor. That's a lie. My client was told her child was dead. Gasps filled the room. Jake shifted uncomfortably. The judge raised an eyebrow. Do you have proof? Ijeoma smiled slightly. We do. An elderly Nigerian-American nurse walked into the courtroom. She had a cane, but her voice was strong. She looked directly at Jake. I remember you. You bribed a junior staff to access that baby. The mother was unconscious. I reported it, but they covered it. The courtroom erupted. Jake's lawyer tried to discredit her, but she pulled out her handwritten notes, stamped, signed, and dated. After 2 long days, the judge paused the case. I need time to review this properly. In the meantime, temporary joint custody. The child will alternate 1 week with each parent. Linda cried as she held Jesse's hand, but deep inside she knew the battle was far from over. Linda hadn't seen Chuka in weeks, but one day he showed up at her grandmother's gate, holding a small wrapped box. Inside was a drawing, Jesse's drawing. It showed Linda, Jesse, and Chuka standing together. He drew this while staying at my place. Chuka said softly, "He calls me Dr. Daddy." Linda laughed, then cried. Chuka held her hand. "I'm not asking you to rush, but I'm here, for you and for him." That night, Linda got a message from an unknown number. "If you keep pushing this, I'll expose everything. You want peace? Walk away quietly." She stared at the screen. Was Jake bluffing? Or was there more? Igioma ran a search, and what she found next would change everything. Jake's job history was fake. He had been fired from 2 previous companies for embezzlement. One of the properties he claimed to own was in foreclosure. And worse, he had a pending assault charge in another state. Everything he used to prove fitness as a father was false. The courtroom was silent as Igioma presented the new findings. The judge's expression hardened. "Mr. Hudson, you lied under oath. You manipulated hospital records. You stole a child. And you nearly ruined a mother's life." Jake tried to defend himself. "I was scared. I didn't know how to make it right." The judge slammed the gavel. "You had 2 years. Now it's time to make it legal." Linda was granted full custody. Jake was allowed supervised visits twice a month until the boy was older. He broke down in tears. But Linda, she walked out of that courtroom holding Jesse in one hand and hope in the other. Outside, Chuka waited with a quiet smile. She walked to him. "I'm not perfect," she said, "but I'm finally free." He kissed her forehead. "And that's all I ever wanted." Sometimes love returns in strange ways. Sometimes pain brings back what was lost. But true healing comes when a woman chooses herself first. Linda didn't just win the battle. She reclaimed her story. And now, her son would grow up knowing the power of a mother's fight. One afternoon, Linda arrived at Jesse's school to pick him up. He wasn't at the usual waiting spot. She asked his teacher, panic rising in her throat. "Oh, a woman already signed him out," the teacher replied. Linda's heartbeat stopped. "A woman? What woman?" The teacher frowned. She said she was his aunt. She even had a photo of him and Mr. Hudson. Linda screamed, "No one is allowed to pick him except me." The school went on lockdown. Police were called. Calls went to Jake, who claimed he knew nothing. Then a CCTV photo arrived. A tall, dark-haired woman in sunglasses with Jesse holding her hand. Not Jake's current girlfriend. Someone else. Someone Linda didn't recognize. That night, Linda's phone rang. A woman's voice, cold calm. "You stole Jake's child. He gave me everything, and now you've ruined it. You want Jesse? Come to the old stadium by 10 a.m. tomorrow." Alone. Then silence. Linda dropped the phone. This wasn't just about Jake anymore. This was vengeance. Jake arrived the next morning at Linda's gate, breathless. "I swear I don't know who she is," he cried. "It could be Claire or maybe Grace. I messed up, okay? I dated them both. I think one of them found out about Jesse." Linda glared at him. "You didn't just mess up. You created a trail of broken people." Jake clenched his jaw. "But I'm here now. We'll get him back." Linda turned away. "I don't trust you, but I love my son more than I hate you. Let's go." Abandoned bleachers. Rusted goalposts. Wind howling. Linda stepped forward first. Jake stayed in the car, watching from a distance. A woman appeared, holding Jesse's hand. "Mommy!" he screamed, tears in his eyes. Linda's heart almost burst. The woman, mid-30s, elegant, eyes filled with rage, pointed a knife at Jesse's neck. "Stay there," she shouted. "You don't deserve him. Jake promised me a family." Linda held out her arms. "You don't have to do this. Please. Jesse is innocent." The woman's eyes twitched. Her voice cracked. "I lost my own son because of Jake. He left me too. You got what I wanted." Linda stepped closer. "Maybe Jake hurt us both. Maybe we were all just women in his shadow. But this little boy, he didn't choose any of that." The woman shook. "I just wanted to feel something again." Linda nodded. "Then don't take from me what life already took from you." Silence. Tears rolled down the woman's cheek. She dropped the knife, and Jesse ran straight into Linda's arms. The woman was arrested, but before being taken away, she said one final thing. "He told me he wanted me to raise Jesse with him. He even said he'd make you disappear." Everyone froze. Linda turned slowly to Jake, eyes burning. "You planned this?" Jake stuttered. "No, she's lying. She's unstable." But her voice was recorded, and the police had it. A week later, Linda and her lawyer filed a motion. Jake's visitation rights were revoked permanently. The court declared him unfit and a threat. He broke down, but no tears could undo what he'd done. This time, Linda walked out of court not in pain, but in power. Months later, Jesse celebrated his 4th birthday. Chuka was there. So were Linda's aunt's neighbors and new friends. She raised a toast to second chances, to peace, to mothers who fight and sons who stay. Chuka knelt that night under mango tree, where they first met. "Will you marry me?" he asked again. Linda looked down at Jesse, who nodded excitedly. She smiled. "Now I'm ready." Life had found rhythm again. Jesse was now 4 and full of life, reading, running, always asking questions. Linda was happier than she'd been in years. Her skincare business had taken off. She and Chuka were planning a quiet, beautiful wedding under the mango tree where they first met. But trouble was quietly crawling back. This time, not through Jake. This time, it came through his parents. Linda was going through Jesse's school bag when she found an envelope. Inside was a formal letter. Filed petition, grandparents' visitation rights, Gregory and Meredith Hudson versus Linda Chakir. Her hands trembled. She had never met Jake's parents. They hadn't reached out when she was pregnant, not even after Jake's arrest. Now they wanted rights. That night, Chuka read the letter silently. "These people never cared," Linda said, pacing. "Now they want to come back because Jake's gone." Chuka sighed. "This isn't just about Jesse. This is about control. But you have the truth and the law." Linda nodded, but deep inside, she was afraid. Igioma, calm as always, reviewed the documents. They're arguing Jesse deserves access to his heritage, culture, and family medical history. Linda scoffed. "What heritage? What family? They erased us. Let them stay gone." Igioma placed a hand on hers. "But if we don't fight smart, they could gain visitation or even temporary custody." Years ago, when Jake told his parents he had gotten a Nigerian girl pregnant, they were furious. "We built our name on legacy," Gregory had said. Meredith added, "Do you know what people say? A child out of wedlock with a foreign girl." Jake begged them to meet Linda. They refused. When Jesse was born, they never sent gifts, never visited. Now, they showed up with lawyers. The judge looked down at both parties. Gregory Hudson stood with his gray suit and proud posture. "We are the boy's only blood relatives aside from the mother. We deserve a role in his life." Linda stood and said, softly but firmly, "Where were you when I almost died giving birth? Where were you when he cried for a father? You only came when he became a headline. That's not family. That's entitlement." Outside court, Igioma whispered, "They're not just fighting to see Jesse. They want to claim him as heir to the Hudson estate. Without you." Linda froze. "What does that mean?" "They want Jesse in their care so they can control his inheritance and eventually cut you out." Igioma flew in an unexpected witness. Nurse Caroline, the one who had testified earlier. She brought with her signed records that proved Jake's family knew about Linda's pregnancy and birth, and chose silence. The courtroom was quiet as she read the statement aloud. Meredith couldn't meet Linda's eyes. The judge asked to speak with Jesse privately, with a child psychologist present. Jesse was asked gently, "Who do you live with?" "Mummy, do you know these people?" He looked at the Hudsons. "No, they never come to my birthday." "Who do you love?" "Mommy and Uncle Chuka. He makes rice with smiley faces." The judge returned. Visitation rights denied. Custody remains fully with the mother. No further appeals allowed unless new evidence arises. This court favors love over bloodline when bloodline shows no love. Linda cried. Quietly, the Hudsons left silently, heads lowered. 2 weeks later, family gathered under the same tree where Chuka once proposed. This time, she wore a flowing lace dress. Jesse was a ring bearer, holding a tiny pillow and flashing a big grin. Chuka stood waiting, nervous and smiling. Linda walked slowly, her eyes filled with peace. They said their vows in soft, trembling voices. And when she said, "I do," it wasn't just to a man. It was to a new life, a second chance, a forever. Sometimes, life gives us heartbreak to prepare us for healing. Sometimes, the ones who abandon us make room for those who will never leave. Linda's story wasn't about choosing between two men. It was about choosing herself, her son, and the family she built in truth. When pain knocked her down, she rose with purpose. When shame knocked on her door, she answered with grace. And when the past returned to destroy her, she stood tall in the courtroom of life and said, "Not again. Not this time." If this story moved you, don't just scroll away. Comment your thoughts. Share it with someone who needs hope. Like if you believe women deserve second chances. Subscribe to ZITA'S Stories, because we don't just tell tales. We give voice to the broken and help them rise again.